The environment changing has clearly played a large part in human health, especially over the past few decades. Although some of these changes may be beneficial, many are very detrimental to not only the health of the planet, but all life on Earth. In particular, more and more humans are beginning to develop autoimmune diseases in their lifetimes, and while there are several different causes for this, including genetics, it would be wrong to not look to the destruction of the environment as a large attribution to the problem. For far too much time, scientists observed each autoimmune disease on its own rather than studying connections between each of them. Over the past 20 years, a significant increase has occurred in the number of cases of autoimmune diseases. Although the etiology is still unknown, scientists have drawn links to genetic and environmental factors. Autoimmune diseases tend to be genetic. They can even have epigenetic effects, such as if one has diabetes, a close relative could have rheumatoid arthritis, as this suggests that the environment had some sort of influence. Autoimmune diseases are put into two categories: organ-specific, which includes type 1 diabetes because there is an attack on cells that produce insulin in the pancreas, and systemic, which involves systemic lupus erythematosus because it occurs in multiple organs throughout the body. When one has an autoimmune disorder, their autoimmune system begins to malfunction and work against itself. I was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus when I was 12 years old, and this came as a huge shock to my family because I was always, or I am always, a very active and healthy person. I never got sick as a kid. I never got the flu or like the colds in the winter. I never missed a day of school, and I was always playing sports. Since being diagnosed, there hasn't really been any work done to figure out why I have lupus, and my parents and doctors have both just assumed that it's because of genetics, but there is way too much evidence against genetics being the only cause here, and if we were to figure out why I have lupus, it could lead to possibly figuring out other environmental triggers that explain why patients develop autoimmune disorders in their lifetimes. The best evidence towards providing possible links between the environment and autoimmune diseases is through the observation and studying pharmaceutical drugs. The drugs enter our bodies through various methods, such as through waterways or eating animals that have consumed the drugs in the environment. Two drugs have been linked to SLE in a minority of patients, as once these patients were taken off the drugs, their lupus symptoms went away. One of these drugs is procainamide, which is a treatment for cardiac arrhythmia. Silica and asbestos both have similar effects in the body. They are both detrimental to the immune cells and the cells inside the lungs, killing them in such a way that produces lots of cellular debris, and when excess cellular debris is made, it can cause the immune system to attack itself. One might be exposed to either of these in more industrial areas. The disorders linked to these chemicals are rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, and scleroderma. In order to further understand and prevent autoimmune disorders, we must aim to understand the pathogens and the diseases on a mechanistic level rather than just observing the symptoms. Some scientists have found that we can use gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, and oral pathogens to analyze autoimmunity, and certain key enzymes that play a central role in celiac disease also play a central role in rheumatoid arthritis. Therefore, we can determine that the environment does play a part here, as epigenetic effects have caused the gene to express rheumatoid arthritis rather than diabetes. One of the journals states, "It is essential to identify the environmental triggers first and then attempt to remove them from the patient's environment." Studying the environmental triggers such as xenophobics, which are substances that are not usually found in the body, can help us to understand what effects these chemicals might have on the body. As of right now, there is not nearly enough research done to pinpoint environmental triggers of autoimmune disorders and why exactly they have increased. However, we do know that using greener alternatives, preserving biodiversity, and stopping the destruction of our forests and wildlife would help the problem and further us in the process towards finding a solution.